The snow drifted in listless spirals around the broken battlements of Winterfell, each flake like a scrap, torn from the fading parchment of history. Bran sat alone in the ancient godswood, wheels of his lacquer-black chair sunken a fingerbreadth into the crusted white. The red leaves above him whispered in a wind too faint to stir mortal lungs, yet loud enough to shake the marrow of every tree from White Harbor to Dorne. He had been listening for hours, or perhaps for centuries. Time pressed oddly upon him now, pooling and eddying like candle wax around the wick of his mind. He saw the past with the same ease that others breathed, but this night the past refused to stay tethered. Something older than Winterfell itself had slipped its leash. When the voice came, it was not the murmuring rumble of the weirwood, nor the rustle of 1,000 feathered spies. It was a bell of iron struck deep in his skull. Clear, resonant, regal. "Remember me," it told, and Bran's lungs seized at the enormity of the memory forced upon him. Banners crackling beneath black volcanic skies, a tower of molten stone rising from an island that bled fire into the sea, and atop its battlements a man, all silhouette and starlight, raising a sword that glimmered like a shard of dawn. Raising a sword that glimmered like a shard of dawn. Bran had never drawn breath upon Dragonstone, yet he felt the sting of its salt wind upon his cheek. He had never mounted Balerion, yet his thighs clenched at the memory of scale and sinew shifting beneath him. The irresistible surged skyward as wings dwarfed the horizon. The vision snapped away, leaving him in the stillness of the godswood, chest heaving, heart hammering. But the echo of that voice lingered. Aegon. A name that was less a word than a verdict. Aegon the Conqueror, father of the Iron Throne, wielder of fire and blood, had brushed the edge of Bran's thoughts like a dragon's wingtip slicing clouds. Bran closed his milky eyes and breathed the scent of damp earth. In the darkness behind his lids another vision bloomed. 26 lords kneeling upon the scorched soil outside Harrenhal's melted carcass, their jeweled sword hilts glinting like scattered embers. Once more, Bran felt the beat of Balerion's wings above them, the hush of awe becoming obedience. The sensation was so vivid, he almost forgot his useless legs. And beneath it, pulsing through the vision as through a living vein, he heard a promise being rewritten. They will kneel again. Across the yard, through frost-fogged windows, servants hurried with torches, ignorant of the tithe of eternity passing just beyond their sight. Bran felt them as motes in a wider tapestry, necessary yet insignificant. He had spent years accepting that truth with equanimity, shepherding a realm too weary for further ruin. Yet now, a tide such as had not been seen in 3 centuries lapped at his thoughts, relentless, commanding. The world had grown small in his reign, not from peace, but from fatigue. Kingdoms nursed old wounds, brewed sick and suspicious. The Iron Islands muttered of salt and storm. Dorne weighed every raven from the capital, measuring each word for insult. Even the North, his own blood seat, remained a land apart, ruled in all but parchment by Sansa, whose fiery brand of autonomy stirred unease south of the neck. The voice found a hollow inside him and settled there. Modern Westeros, it scoffed, tasting the phrase like soured wine. A patchwork of sullen children who call themselves sovereigns. Bran's hands clenched the armrests. The weirwood faces loomed, their carved eyes bleeding sap that glistened ruby-black in torchlight. Once, they had been tutors and witnesses. Now they were an audience to something vaster, something untamed by root or river. Aegon's spirit, if spirit it could be called, did not grope like a ghost, but strode like a king returned from victorious exile. The wind stiffened. Bran felt it rattle through every bald tower and broken wall, a cold iron herald knocking upon every door. In the great hall, his courtiers would begin whispering that Winterfell moaned like a great bellows. They would complain of hearth fires that sputtered for want of air. They would blame the weather or the drafts, or even the old gods. None would think to blame a conqueror 300 years dead. Bran flexed fingers that no longer carried feeling. Sensation came instead through threads of unseen silk tugging at his mind. He reached, not with arms, but with thought, across leagues of snow-capped hills toward the sea. There, in a small stone holdfast clinging to the cliffs, a shepherd's son startled from uneasy sleep. The boy dreamed of dragons, great black shadows blotting the moon, and awoke with a scream that scattered sheep across a frozen pasture. Bran recoiled from the sudden thrust of fear, yet a pulse of triumph surged through him. The realm would remember dragons even if dragons were long gone. Fear was the first brick in a new empire. Farther south, in the Riverlands, Lord Edmund Tully's granddaughter studied accounts by candlelight. Ink pooled into numbers she barely grasped. Grain was scarce. The last harvest had rotted under relentless rains. She chewed the quill and considered tariffs, debts, beggars clogging muddy roads. Bran tasted her weariness, the stale despair clinging to the parchment. A kingdom divided by mutual exhaustion was ripe for a single, undeniable will. "You see it," Aegon hummed, a low thunder beneath Bran's ribs. "They need a boot and a banner in equal measure." The sky cracked with distant thunder, though no storm clouds moved overhead. Bran shivered. Somewhere a maester would note the anomaly in his ledgers, a curiosity to mull over spiced wine. None would suspect that two kings now shared one body. Bran the Broken, seer of all that was and might be, held the realm's memory. Aegon the Conqueror, master of dragons, hammer of crowns, brought a hunger for obedience that memory alone could never sate. "How did you come to me?" Bran asked within the sanctum of his mind. Silence answered first, stretching thin and brittle. Then, soft as a sigh through cathedral doors, "You opened every window in the world, little king. I am merely the wind that found its way inside." A wave of vertigo rippled through Bran. He clutched the arms of his chair as the world seesawed, vision flickering between the godswood at night and Dragonstone crowned by crimson dawn. In one heartbeat he smelled pine and moss. In the next, sulfur and ash. The boundaries of flesh wavered. His lungs drew air older than his bones, tinged with salt and fire. He felt the weight of a crown not yet forged upon his brow. "We will not rush this," Aegon chided. The words both rebuke and reassurance. An empire is built in moments, not in motions. "We will begin as a whisper." Bran inhaled, and the godswood exhaled with him. The weirwood faces contorted, their mouths widening in silent, sapuslick screams no human ear would hear. In distant Old Town, a glass candle atop the high tower flared white-hot, casting shards of impossible light across the harbor. Apprentices scattered like startled gulls, but the Archmaester merely frowned, sensing a pattern he dared not name. Knowledge had boundaries, and some doors were meant to stay barred by superstition. Tonight, superstition splintered. On the Iron Islands, crowds gathered in torchlit circles to hear a priest of the drowned god preach rebellion against distant kings. His voice rose like a storm tide until, mid-sentence, he choked on brine that was not brine. Salt water flooded his lungs, though he had not drunk nor drowned, and he collapsed, clutching at his throat. The torches guttered. A hush fell. And in that hush, the islanders felt an old terror waken, one older even than the sea. When the priest finally coughed up froth and fear, his sermon changed. He spoke of dragons returned, of kneeling lest fire teach them humility. No one knew why his words had twisted, but every listener carried them home like smoldering embers. Bran's heart struggled against his ribs. Each beat seemed to echo down corridors of time he could neither map nor master. The voice within him rumbled with approval. Scattered sparks, ready tinder. Bran swallowed the taste of iron on his tongue. "This realm has earned its peace," he whispered, thinking of the fragile alliances he had nurtured. "They have bled enough for 1,000 lifetimes." Aegon's laughter rolled like distant thunder across a summer plain. "Peace is but a pause between vows. I gave them one empire. They shattered it. Let them kneel anew, and perhaps their grandchildren will remember why." His presence expanded, pressing against Bran's skull until pain sheared through thought. Bran felt each shard as a memory fracturing. Robb's smile beneath green leaves. Arya's eyes shining with mischief. Hodor's final, desperate howl. He gasped, and the godswood swam. "Enough," he rasped aloud, though no one stood near to hear him. Somewhere deep, the weirwood roots shifted, a continent of veins stirring in its sleep. Bran realized that Aegon's will was not an occupant but a tide, and tides did not ask. They rose. He drew the night silence around him, weaving visions like a shield. He saw Daenerys upon the walls of Meereen. He saw Maegor the Cruel in his blood-slick throne room. He saw Rhaenys laughing astride Meraxes. He poured centuries into his mindscape, a mosaic of triumphs and tragedies, hoping to drown the newcomer in magnitude. Yet Aegon drank full of them. Smile widening, firelight dancing in eyes that were not Bran's. Every story is a blade in the right hand. Bran's breath fogged the air. The godswood temperature dropped so abruptly that rime crystallized upon the black bark of the heart tree. Far away, on the summer-soft shores of the arbor, vintners woke to frost that devoured half their vineyards in a night. Sailors blamed ghosts of the long night, but in their fear they spoke of kneeling should a stronger king demand it. The thought passed from lip to ear like wine from cask to cup. In King's Landing, Queen Daenerys' great bronze dragon skulls still lined the cellars beneath the Red Keep. Rats nested in hollow eye sockets, yet the stones themselves remembered being molten, seared by dragon's breath. Aegon's sight rode Bran's own, sliding through brick and bone, tracing fault lines in the capital's brittle peace. The Iron Throne had been torn down and reforged into a gentler seat, its edges filed, its height reduced. Aegon recoiled as though struck, revulsion roiling inside Bran's gut. They blunted the crown to fit their shrinking hearts. He lingered over courts where petitioners argued tariffs and parchments, rather than glory and gales of change. He watched lords fuss over new quilting patterns for banners no enemy threatened, and his silence became a vow. Bran tasted ash. He knew what was coming as surely as if he had seen it written upon every leaf of every tree. He thought of Sansa, proud in her wolf-glass crown, thinking herself safe behind northern loyalty. He thought of Tyrion in his study, weighing the merits of free ports versus bonded warehouses. He thought of Jon, still wandering lands east of the Wall, seeking lost pieces of himself among the snows. They would not see the storm until its shadow covered them entire. "We will make them see," Aegon promised. "We will teach them again that crowns are not inherited but taken. I forged an empire from fire and fear. Through you, I will forge it anew, from marrow and memory." Bran tried to protest, but his own voice was a leaf beneath a hurricane. The Conqueror's resolve filled him like molten gold, searing away hesitation. He felt the map of Westeros fold and bend, lines redrawing themselves beneath will alone. At the edges of that map, dark waters stirred. Essos merchants hungry for opportunity, Summer Islanders seeking trade, Corthine warlocks sniffing distant sorcery. News of impossible frost and whispered dragons would reach them soon. Markets move not by coin alone but by dread and desire. Aegon understood that principle as he understood blood. The flutter of wings pulled Bran from the whirlpool of thought. A single raven alighted upon the weirwood's limb, head cocked. In its bead-awe-bright eyes Bran saw not simple instinct, but the spark of command. There had been ravens in Aegon's day, carrying tidings of surrender and flames of revolt alike. He raised a trembling hand. The bird hopped closer. Bran's throat ached with words never spoken in this age. A high Valyrian phrase that tasted of iron-rich earth and dragonfire. "Bihu Dor Nuhis the First. Come to me, my heir." The raven ruffled its feathers, then bowed. Aegon's satisfaction pulsed through Bran's veins like brandy. "First the birds," he murmured. "Then the men, then the world." Bran felt tears slip down his cheeks, frozen pearls crusting at once. He wondered whose tears they were. Morning crept toward Winterfell, pale and listless, as though the sun feared what dawn might reveal. Servants would soon cross the courtyard, muttering about the deep cold, failing to notice the change in the heart tree's face, its red sap now webbed with hairline fractures that gleamed like molten gold. They would not see the raven's black beak stained red, nor the faint plume of warmth that drifted from Bran's lips even in the frigid air. He rolled his chair forward, snow crunching under motionless feet. Each turn of the wheel left twin tracks, narrow, deliberate, which the falling snow could not entirely conceal. They pointed away from the godswood, and toward the great hall where banners of the direwolf hung limp. Somewhere behind Bran's eyes, Aegon gathered those banners like tinder for a pyre only he could see. Bran felt the first lick of that future flame warm his numb fingers. Deep beneath the Red Keep, a rat paused atop Balerion's cavernous skull. For a breath too long, the bones glowed, as though some forgotten furnace had rekindled in their hollows. The rat, sensing calamity, fled. Dust drifted from ribs as tall as men. In the quiet that followed, the stone foundation itself seemed to inhale. West of Storm's End, fishermen hauled nets heavy with silver wrasse, yet every third fish floated lifeless, eyes white. The old among them muttered that when dragons walked, the sea remembered fire as though it were water. They would tell their children that night, and children would carry the tale to market squares, until the words twisted into omens. Kneel, kneel, lest the sky burn. Fear would ferment in those tales, and from fear rose armies. Bran entered the hall as dawn's first glimmer bled through arrow slits. Guards bowed, gloved hands on sword hilts, polished more for show than need. They greeted him as your grace, blind to the second sovereign who strode at their king's shoulder. Bran's gaze drifted skyward, beyond stone and timber to the memory of a dragon's shadow blotting out constellations. For an instant, Winterfell's rafters groaned, as though under a sudden weight. He spoke then, voice level, soft, yet carrying the brittle authority of winter itself. Summon Maester Walken. Dispatch ravens to every great house. There will be a council tonight. The guards exchanged glances. Councils were not unusual. Yet something in the king's tone pricked their napes. Bran's eyes, old as starlight, offered no comfort. The men bowed deeper and hurried off, boots echoing like distant hooves. In the stillness that followed, Bran wheeled to the center of the hall and paused beneath banners of sunset red and winter white. His breath formed a slender plume that twined upward and vanished. Yet he felt an older fire gather in his chest. Aegon's words returned, shaping themselves into command. Let them come anxious and depart obedient. Bran nodded, accepting the dictum as though he had always believed it. Outside, the sun finally breached the horizon, yet light fled from Winterfell's walls, as though uncertain of welcome. In that trembling dawn, the realm shifted on an unseen pivot. Every bird call and market cry to a chord struck 3 centuries before. Men sharpening plows paused, sensing the air thicken like kindling smoke. Women drawing water glanced skyward as though expecting wings. The world did not know the Conqueror had returned, but its bones remembered the cadence of his approach. Rhythms carved by dragonfire into cliff and canyon, still echoing beneath layers of soil and song. Bran wheeled slowly toward the dais where his carved seat of weirwood roots awaited. He crossed the threshold that separated rule from reign, pausing at the brink of comfort and calamity. His hands trembled upon the chair's arms, knuckles blanching, nails biting wood. Then, with a sigh that sounded almost relieved, he surrendered the last wisp of hesitation. Aegon stepped fully into him, and for a heartbeat, Bran felt fire in his dead legs. The phantom ache of motion. He almost rose. He did not. The realm would rise instead. In Oldtown, the glass candle shivered and flared. In the Vale, a falcon none could name screamed across a steel blue sky, scattering flocks. In the deserts of Dorne, sandstorms brewed against all season, spiraling columns that spelled omens in runes only the wind could read. And in Blackwater Bay, the tides reversed for one impossible hour. Ships listing as sailors cursed and prayed. The Conqueror had found a new vessel. Westeros, weary and divided, would kneel anew, though it did not yet know to whom it bent. For now, it would kneel to an idea, a rising dread, a whisper carried by ravens whose black beaks dripped memory. Soon, kneeling would become inevitable as sunrise. And just as sunrise beggared night, so too would conquest beggar complacency. Bran closed his eyes, and in the darkness he saw Aegon's banner, 3 heads, 3 tongues of fire, unfurl over every castle tower. He felt the tremor of watchers on distant walls, as they recognized the sigil their grandfathers' grandfathers had once feared. And deep in Winterfell's heart, the ancient stone groaned, a soft, yielding sound, like old bones bending before a king returned to claim them. The broken king inhaled. The conqueror exhaled. Between those breaths hung silence as fragile as a snowflake, as lethal as a drawn blade. That silence was Westeros' last moment of ignorance, drifting gently toward the heat of a dawn that would melt it forever. But show. Gray dawn settled into an iron morning, the pale light filtering through high windows, as if unsure it belonged within Winterfell's ancient stones. Servants moved like phantoms, stoking hearths that hissed in protest. Every fire seemed reluctant, burning low and sullen despite fresh peat and kindling. Bran felt each ember as if it was a coal balanced upon his heart. Aegon's presence pressed at the edges of his mind, constant, watchful, patient in the way glacier ice is patient, advancing whether the world marked its progress or not. Maester Walken entered first, sleeves still dusted with parchment shavings, eyes rimmed red from a night spent scribing messages he did not understand. Behind him filed Lord Glover of Deepwood Motte, broad-shouldered, face-lined from seasons spent braving the weeping woods. Lady Barbary Risewell came next, her widow's black tailored so sharply it seemed to cut the air. Robert Serwyn and Alice Karstark followed, flanking the last arrival. Queen Sansa Stark, cloaked in white fox. Snowflakes clung to her auburn hair like scattered diamonds. She brushed them away with a curt gesture before taking her place at Bran's right hand. Silence held the hall. Sansa studied her brother, measuring the set of his mouth, the distant glint in eyes that once saw everything. "You called a council," she said at last, voice calm, betraying nothing. "What matter presses in midwinter that could not wait for spring?" Bran's chair creaked as he leaned forward. Words formed unbidden. Any season bends before a crown. But he swallowed them, forcing his own tongue to shape something milder. "The realm shifts," he said, hearing Aegon's cadence lace each syllable with steel. "Ravens carry rumors of unrest from every quarter. The Iron Islands preach defiance. Manderley's grain fleets drift idle for want of coin. In the east, warlocks stir in Korth like wasps, woken too soon. We must answer, or the answers will come for us." "And oh," Lord Glover snorted. "Idle grain fleets and Korthine magicians are troubles for a warmer coastline, Your Grace. The north needs only axes and full larders." A shiver rippled through Bran. No, through Aegon, indignant that any lord would presume to weigh peace against obedience. Bran felt the ghost of heat bloom behind his ribs. "Axes feed no mouths when the fields burn," he replied, voice cool. "And fire travels faster than ravens." Sansa's fingers tightened on the table. "Brother," she said, a warning hidden in affection. "Ain, dot too." Bran's gaze drifted to the hearth. Flames snapped, casting quick, violent shapes across the flagstones. Shadows of wings, of crowns, of blades. He felt Aegon gathering those shapes like sigils. "I have seen what comes," Bran murmured. "A darkness in men's hearts answered by decisive will. Either we master it, or it masters us." Lady Barbary's laugh cracked like breaking twigs. "Prophecy and riddles. We have walked that road before, and found only corpses." "And no one." A gust rattled the shutters, hard enough that frost dusted the council table. Walken flinched. Bran's breath plumed white. "Not prophecy," he said, and his voice was not entirely his own. "Memory. Stone remembers being molten. Wood remembers sap. Blood remembers kneeling." Karstark shifted uneasily. "Kneeling, Your Grace." Bran's fingers curled over the armrests, nails digging crescent moons into the carved weirwood. "The realm has frayed. To mend cloth, one must sometimes draw the threads tight. Tighter than comfort allows." Sansa's chair scraped as she stood. "Enough. Speak plainly. Do you intend war?" Bran turned slowly to face her. Behind his eyes storm clouds gathered, lit by distant fire. "Not war," he answered. "Unification. The throne may lie in ruins, But the idea of it survives. We will give the realm a center again. One crown, one ruler. Peace through singular purpose. Singular purpose enforced by whose sword? Sansa asked. The North bent knee once for dragons and paid in blood and ash. We will not bow to distant flames again. Name. The name flared within Bran's mind. Balerion. Wings blotting out the sun. He tasted copper on his tongue. Dragons or no, the realm will kneel. Better under a Stark who understands ice than under fire reborn elsewhere. Glover rose. The North follows its own stars. Bran's chair rolled forward a fraction, though he had not willed it. Shadows twisted, hallowing him in tempest-shaped gloom. When he spoke, the hall's torches guttered. Stars vanish at dawn, he said, voice low, each word thudding like hoofbeats. And dawn is coming. Sansa's breath caught. She saw then not her brother, but something vast wearing his skin. Council dismissed, she declared, forcing command into trembling words. We will confer again at dusk. The lords did not bow so much as retreat, chairs scraping like shields dragged across stone. They fled into corridors where fires seemed feeble, muttering prayers to whichever gods might still listen. Only Sansa remained, gaze locked upon Bran. What has taken hold of you? She whispered. He tried to answer, feeling Aegon's will coil around his throat like a velvet noose. At last he managed, a memory that will not stay buried. Then, softer, forgive me, Sansa. Her eyes shone. I will not forgive a stranger who steals my brother's face. The words trembled, but anger tempered fear. She left without another glance, cloak swirling like winter midnight. When the hall emptied, Bran sagged. The chair's wheels ticked on uneven flags, eerie in the hush. Aegon's presence pulsed. They doubt because they see only limbs. Blood. Faces that age. Show them something that does not age. Show them inevitability. Bran's thoughts scattered like birds before a gale. Without dragons, inevitability is an illusion, he murmured. Without will, dragons are idle terror, Aegon replied. I forged an empire because I believed it should exist. Believe again, and the world bends. That night, the ravens departed Winterfell in threes. Their wings sliced moonlight, a living constellation scattering south and east, each bird bearing a letter sealed with stark gray wax. The message within was spare. The king in the north calls banners to Winterfell for conference under the new moon. Matters of realm-wide import demand attendance. No threats, no promises. Yet lords reading those words felt cold settle in marrow, as though the parchment carried a chill all its own. At River Run, Lord Edmund Tully read the summons aloud to his council. He frowned, remembering the days of Robb Stark's banners streaming south. Conference, he mused. Or conquest. Muttered debate broke out. The Riverlands could ill afford another war, yet ignoring a Stark summons seemed folly older than legend. In the end, the lords agreed to ride north, steel at their hips, fears knotted beneath wool cloaks. In the Eyrie, Lady Arya Arryn, Sansa's chosen ward, stared down at a raven perched upon cold marble. Her maester deciphered the note. Arya drew a breath sharp enough to sting lungs. Winterfell calls, she said, echoing a phrase older than her house sky-touched towers. Knights of the Vale began packing, eyes wide with unspoken questions. Beyond the neck, in the Crenoglands, Howland Reed's grandchildren clustered around their father as he folded the letter. Your grandsire owes the North a debt, he said. We ride with spears of reeds and memories of kings. South of the Trident, word arrived at Harrenhal, a ruin still being rebuilt after centuries of shifting ownership. Its current lady, Shireen Taegir, descendant of minor Valyrian exiles, pricked her finger on the wax wolf as she broke the seal. Blood beaded bright. Something in that beating stirred old stories. A dragon's roar echoing across God's Eye, the last time Winterfell's summons had ridden upon ice and shadow. She ordered 5 companies armed by sunrise. Ravens crossed the ocean too. On Dragonstone's blackened ramparts, Queen Daenerys' council read Bran's words. Daenerys, older now, tempered by rule, watched the candle flame dance along the edges. A council under the new moon, she murmured. Bold, to command the realm in darkness. Sir Davos shrugged his good shoulder. Darkness hides arrows, your grace, yet it also blinds men with pride. The North may call banners, but you are the Dragon Queen still. Daenerys traced the parchment. I melted the Iron Throne. Bran seeks to remake what I shattered. Would he call me to bow, or to bless? She looked to Tyrion once more, her hand. What says the king? Tyrion's scarred face shadowed. Bran seldom writes. When he does, the words matter. Attend, or whatever he builds may rise without you. Her violet eyes narrowed. Then we sail. Better to shape the forge than fear the finished blade. Across the narrow sea, in the free city of Bravos, Jon Snow, wandering, always wandering, received his own letter delivered by a faceless girl who vanished after the word conference left her lips. He burned the wax to ash, turning the slip over and over until the letters smudged. Bran, he whispered. What have you done? Ghost whined, sensing the raw edge of command that rode within the ink. Jon gathered cloak and sword. The sea would be cruel this season, but blood called across water. Winterfell swelled with arrivals. Tents sprouted beyond the walls, a forest of cloth in house colors. Spears stacked in snowy ranks, banners whipping in shrill wind. Markets overflowed, casks of ale rolling from wagon beds. Pigs squealed at makeshift pens. Yet beneath the bustle ran an undercurrent of dread, invisible but heavy, like frost on mid-spring blossoms. Bran watched from a balcony overlooking the courtyard. He and Aegon measured each contingent, the number of riders, the eagerness of bannermen to dismount and bow. Some knelt quickly, others bowed heads only. Each gesture carved itself upon the ledger Aegon kept behind Bran's eyes. Sansa greeted lords at the gate, voice warm if wary. Diplomacy flowed like honey over cracks and stone, but she felt each lie reverberate. So glad you came, your counsel is valued, we seek common peace. She glimpsed fear flickering behind courtesy. Fear of the cold, of dragons long dead, of a king who saw too much. That evening, a feast stretched from board to hearth. Casks were tapped, honeyed carrots steamed, venison roasted in cloves. Yet, little joy found root. Conversations died when Bran wheeled into the hall. A hush followed him like a tide withdrawing from shore. He nodded to no one, his attention distant, as if hearing another song layered atop the harp strings and laughter. He took his seat on the dais beside Sansa. When the last platter settled, he raised a wooden goblet. The hall quieted further, no clink of knife against cup, no cough to mask nerves. Lords and ladies, Bran began, I thank you for answering Winterfell's call. His gaze swept them, seeing not faces but tokens upon a board centuries wide. The realm stands at a brink, you feel it though you cannot name it. Crops rot in the fields of the Reach, storms strike the stepstones out of season. The drowned gods' priests preach rebellion, these are omens of fracture. We gather tonight to seal those cracks before they swallow us. A murmur rippled, a mixture of assent and objection. Bran lifted a hand, and silence fell with unnatural speed. Torches dimmed, the very air thinned. We will forge a council to rule all Westeros. Not 7 kingdoms but one realm, whole and indivisible. Each lord here will swear fealty not to crown nor sword, but to unity itself, an oath older than borders. Lord Glover rose, beef broad chest swelling. I swore no such oath when I rode through the snow. The North remembers its freedom earned in fire. Bran's eyes flickered black for an instant, pupils swallowing blue like ink in water. Aegon surged. The hearth flames leapt, forming for a heartbeat the shape of a winged beast roaring at the rafters. Gasps rippled, goblets tumbled, wine steaming on rushes. Freedom is the child of order, Bran intoned, voice ringing across stone. Chaos mothers only graves. Glover's defiance drained like water from a cracked cask. He sat, sweat beading his brow despite the clammy hull. Maester Walken, pale as parchment, scratched notes on a wax tablet that shook in his grasp. Bran felt the maester's terror as a tremor in distant strings. And Aegon plucked them. "Record this," he whispered in Bran's mind, "so posterity knows when the wheel turned anew." Lady Barbary cleared her throat. "Your Grace, unity cannot be commanded by fear. Dragonfire forged the throne, but rebellion broke it." Bran nodded once, calm returning. "Then let unity be forged by understanding. Tomorrow at daylight we convene again. You will speak your hopes and doubts. By sunset we draft a covenant none may sever save at peril. I request your candor and your courage. Request, not order." The distinction soothed many. Conversation resumed in stilted clusters. But the image of the firewing lingered, fluttering behind every blink. Night's edge settled thick and oily. Wolves howled beyond the outer walls, their cries circling the castle like drums. Bran sat alone in the library, candlelight trembling on ancient tomes. He traced a finger along a cracked spine. 10,000 ships. A narrative of Nymeria's flight. Stories of conquest sidled up against stories of survival. Both ended in kneeling of one kind or another. Aegon's approval thrummed. Footsteps approached, measured and soft. Sansa entered, cloak drawn tightly. She shut the door, leaning her back against it. Only the candle between them illumined her wary face. "Tell me the truth," she said. Bran closed 10,000 ships with a sigh of dust. "Which truth? Whose voice speaks through you?" The candle guttered. Bran lowered eyes to withered hands resting palms up on blanket-covered legs. Aegon Targaryen, the first of his name, the Conqueror. Sansa's breath hitched. A ghost? A memory with will. He looked up, and his gaze was centuries deep. "He found a gap in me where time pools. Now he swims there, too large to remove, too strong to ignore. Ban? Then fight him." Bran smiled sadly, a boy's smile on a sage's face. "I have fought. Each breath is a skirmish. But he is certainty, Sansa. The realm reveres certainty. They will follow him even if they hate him." She stepped forward, fury glittering. "They will follow if we choose to bend. I will not, nor will the North." Aegon stirred, disdainful. Bran's voice roughened. "The North is part of the realm, not apart from it. If it stands alone, it will stand surrounded. I will not let you threaten our people." Bran's chair rolled closer, though his hands remained still. "I threaten nothing. I warn. The tide is coming. One wave destroys, another carries ships to harbor. Choose which lifts us." Tears filled her eyes, though none fell. "I choose my brother over a dead king." Bran's expression softened. Bran's, not Aegon's. A flicker of pain wreathed his features. "Then help me. Guide the tide. If unity must come, let it carry our values, not Maegor's cruelty." She swallowed. "Swear no harm to those who refuse kneeling. Refusal harms itself," Aegon murmured through Bran's lips. But Bran wrested control. "No blood without cause," he vowed. "Sovereignty offered first. Sword second." She weighed the oath. "I will hold you to it," she said, voice hoarse. Then, almost pleading, "Come back to us, Bran." His answering smile was both child and conqueror. "I never left. I simply grew wider." She left then, cloak brushing old stone. Bran watched the door close. In the hush he whispered, "Thank you. For believing? For fearing?" Aegon did not specify. The candle burned lower. The following dawn painted Winterfell copper and pewter. Frost-veiled banners, each sigil muted, as if history itself weighed them down. Lords gathered in the Godswood, summoned by Bran's decree to speak beneath the faces of the old gods. Most arrived stiff-shouldered, for the heart tree's bleeding eyes unnerved, even hardened warriors. Sansa stood at Bran's side, gloved hand gripping his chair. Her presence reminded each lord of northern resilience. Snow-thick, quiet, unbroken. Bran addressed them, voice carrying beneath red leaves. "Speak," he invited. "Tell me why you fear unity." Lord Manderley, broad as a feast table, strode forward. "Coin," he said. "A single throne taxes ports it protects. When thrones shatter, smugglers thrive and coffers drain. Dragonstone promises sea patrols, yet pirates nest in the stepstones still. What reforms will protect our trade?" Bran nodded. "A council of ports appointed by each region will levy a single tariff, funding joint fleets. Sailors will fly banners of the realm, not of petty kings. In return, pirate heavens will be scoured." Aegon's appetite for decisive action flavored every line with menace. Lady Barbary spoke next. "Justice," she demanded. "In peak lands, lords hoard grain while small folk starve. Still the crown meddles not. Unity without equity is but gilded tyranny." Bran's eyes glinted. A circuit of judges, rotated yearly, sworn to no house, will ride the roads. Their rulings answer to the council, not to crowns. A ripple of surprise. Such radical proposal from a Stark seemed unthinkable. Yet many nodded. Perhaps unity could wield not only sword but scales. Sir Baron Swan from Storm's End stepped forward. "Faith. The Seven kept peace when lords remembered vows. Dragons burned sept of remembrance. How shall we trust a throne upon which the gods once rained fire?" "Memsar." Bran inhaled cold scented of pine. "Faith has many faces. The Seven, the old gods, the drowned god, Roller, they coexist. The realm must protect all or none. A concordat shall guarantee worship free from persecution. Priests who preach insurrection will answer secular courts. Warriors who break temples will answer divine ones. Balance, not supremacy." Some eyes widened. Bold words for a Northman to speak in the heart tree's shadow. Yet the concept of shared sanctity comforted more than it threatened. The godswood grew warmer as voices rose. Carpenters seeking coin for ships. Maesters seeking libraries. Marsh lords seeking levies against rising rivers. Each problem Bran answered with plans half his and half Aegon's, equal parts empathy and iron. The lords saw brilliance. They missed the blaze beneath. When the sun touched the western wall, Bran raised a firmer hand. "Twice you bowed to conquerors. Once to dragons, once to horrors of ice. The third kneeling must be by choice. Kneel now and stand united. Refuse and stand alone." And now, silence swallowed the grove. Snow drifted from reddened leaves, dusting attendees. Lord Glover stepped forward, bent knee upon frost-caked roots. His breath rose as steam. "Deepwood answers Winterfell," he said, albeit grudgingly. Lady Karstark knelt next, voice clear. "Karhold follows the old blood." One by one they bowed, fear mingling with fresh conviction. In their kneeling, Bran felt Aegon's triumph surge, vast and hot. But he also sensed a tenderness, a longing fulfilled only by unity that would endure beyond war drums. Perhaps he hoped conquest could birth peace rather than silence. Sansa remained standing. The lords watched, hearts hammering. She closed her eyes and knelt last, though she did not lower her head. "I kneel," she declared. "For the North, not in surrender but in partnership. This covenant binds crown to people. Break it, and the North will rise again." Bran bowed his head in acknowledgement, genuine respect warring with Aegon's flicker of annoyance. "It will not be broken," he vowed, voice like river ice cracking under dawn's sun. The heart tree's carved face seemed to smile, sap glistening as though shedding tears of blood-bright joy. A raven cawed thrice, each call echoing like a hammer on anvil. Bran felt the realm shift. Knees pressed ground from Dorne's red sands to the Vale's sky climbs. They simply did not yet know it. The forces set loose this day would roll south in invisible waves, until even the faintest resistance would feel like standing against winter wind on a naked moor. That night banners once more fluttered above Winterfell. But now a new standard joined them. Sansa herself had ordered its weaving, a direwolf rampant beneath 3 dragon heads entwined, argent on a field of midnight gray. Thread of red ran through the wolf's eyes, glinting in torchlight, a reminder of blood paid and owed. Lords gathered to witness its rays. Some felt pride, others unease. All felt history in the making. Sigils did not merge lightly. Maester Walken recorded each expression behind shaky quill. As the banner lifted, a hush fell. Snow ceased. Even wind seemed to hold breath. Bran watched from the rampart, cloak snapping like broken wings stitched anew. Aegon's presence coiled, satisfied. A flag for the winds to carry, he mused. Now give them a roar to follow. Bran closed his eyes. In the crypt below Winterfell lay the bones of ancient Stark kings, each blade rusting upon stone laps. Among them also lay Queen Daenerys' last dragon, Drogon, whose body had been borne north after succumbing to wounds sustained in distant skirmish with corsairs off the Summer Isles many years ago. Scales dulled to slate, wings collapsed like tents after storm. Yet still, in marrow and scale, spark of fire slept. Bran reached with sight no eye possessed, diving through layers of earth and bone and cold. He found that spark, an ember starved but unbeaten. With Aegon's will he breathed upon it, memory feeding fire, conquest feeding breath. The spark glimmered, flared. Deep cracks fissured across ancient scale. Dust erupted in quiet detonations. A heartbeat pulsed where none had pulsed in years. Overground, lords startled as muffled thunder grumbled underfoot. The ground shivered. Once, twice. Stone groaned, the low lament of earth, shifting to make room for miracle. Bran raised one hand, palm skyward. Rise, Aegon intoned through him. In the crypt, Drogon's chest expanded a hair's breadth, air whistling over ragged throats. With it rose ash and silence broken for the first time since burial. The lords felt the tremor and surged back from the raised banner, eyes wide, hands clasping hilts. Earthquake, Robert Serwyn gasped. Winterfell's stones cracked along weather-worn seams. Snow fell from ramparts in sheaves. Bran held his hand high, face fixed. Sweat pearl-lining brow despite frigid air. He whispered a single word. Gessa. Old Valyrian. Now. A roar ruptured night. It rolled through tunnels and halls, bursting from the ground like a geyser of sound. Torches guttered, horses screamed, men stumbled to knees. Stone lids shattered, iron rust flaking like sparks. Then wings, tattered yet vast, tore into lamplit air, scattering guards like leaves. Drogon emerged, black scales gleaming where new forged by sorcery, ragged where time had chewed them. One eye glowed ember red, the other a pale milky void. He rose atop cracked crypt stone, wings cracking like canvas in gale. Lords gaped, their minds trying and failing to reconcile legend with living night. Bran's hand remained raised. Drogon's molten eye fixed upon him. A hush deeper than death sealed the yard. In that hush, Bran spoke, not aloud but along a thread of eternity. Serve. Drogon lowered his massive head, scarred horns bowing to the boy king with a 1,000-year stare. Sansa's gasp sliced silence. Awe warred with horror upon her face. But she understood enough. Bran, her Bran, had bound a dragon from beyond death. And with that binding, everything changed. Fires flared alive along Drogon's spine, casting oil-slick rainbows on snow. Heat pulsed, melting frost in widening circles. Bran lowered his arm. Drogon folded wings that still spanned half the courtyard. Tail curling, waiting. Aegon's voice boomed within Bran, jubilant. The Empire rides again. Word of the resurrection flew faster than ravens, borne on the terrified whispers of every witness. By dawn, riders galloped south, breath fogging like steam from boiling seas. "The dragon lives!" they cried at each holdfast, as though speaking the miracle aloud would unburden minds. Instead, it seeded panic and wonder in equal measure. At White Harbor, Dock workers paused mid-haul of cod barrels. One dropped his load. Fish splattered, eyes glazing. A foreman cursed until he heard the rumor himself. Then his curses turned to prayers. In the reach, Lady Tarley halted a council on crop rotation when a messenger arrived, dust-caked and wide-eyed. Hearers repeated dragon as though the word might burn tongues. Harvest plans withered in the heat of what it portended. Queen Daenerys' fleet sighted the first northern fire in the night sky before ravens reached them. A column of green flame crackling with unnatural intensity. Dragonscale bethought itself of home, and the sea churned around keels, as though stirred by unseen wings. Even Daenerys, whose dragons lay dead, and whose hopes lay buried with them, felt her heart pound like battle drums. Jon Snow rode from Braavos, ship cutting across angry seas. Ghost paced deck tirelessly, hackles bristling. Jon stared north each dusk, haunted by memory of black wings and hotter-than-hell breath. He had buried Drogon with his own hands. Now he pictured Bran, small and silent, commanding that mountain of fire and scale. "What are you becoming, little brother?" he wondered, dread sinking talons. In Winterfell, work began at once to enlarge the courtyard, tear down damaged walls, and open space for wingbeats. Lords bent themselves to the tasks with zeal. Whether born of faith, fear, or pragmatism, none could say. Drogon slept by day inside the godswood, curled about the heart tree whose red leaves steamed under his breath. By night, he patrolled skies, a silhouette like a living continent, his single ember eye reflecting hearths across leagues. Bran watched each flight from the ramparts, the wind off Drogon's wings whipping his cloak. With each beat he felt Aegon's will knit tighter with his own. He still dreamed of webs of time, but now each thread glinted with flame, possibilities narrowing, choices crystallizing into inevitability. On the seventh night, after Drogon's rising, Bran assembled the lords within the great hall once more. The room had changed. Banners now draped the walls, echoing the merged sigil flying outside. At Bran's back stood Drogon's shadow, projected through high windows by brazier light, an omen none dared ignore. "My lords," Bran began, voice steady, "the realm has its symbol. The last dragon lives again. Let those plotting rebellion look to the sky, and know futility." Then Damelwar. Lord Glover spoke, voice subdued. "The Ironborn will not bend for banners or roars alone. They yielded once to dragons, yet rose again after fire dimmed." "Then fire will not dim," Bran answered. "Drogon lives because will revived him. That will remains." Murmurs of awe flitted like moths. Bran raised a hand. "The council we swore to form now seats itself hereafter as the throne of one realm. Each region shall appoint 2 representatives, one lord, one chosen of the commons. All decrees require 2/3 voice. I serve as arbiter, guide, and memory, but not as tyrant. Unity breathes through shared lungs." Then Chamo. This surprised them more than Dragon's resurrection. Power shared? Commons heard in hall? Such radical thought, unsettled, and enticed in equal measure. Faces turned calculating. "But," Bran continued, chill returning, "should discord threaten the realm's heart, the arbiter's word becomes binding. Dragons do not argue with sheep." Fear balanced hope, forging compliance. Lady Barbary asked, "When do we travel south?" "Seat of rule must lie where all may reach." "No." "Misty. First day of thaw," Bran said. "Roads clear. Snows recede. Drogon flies before us." "Herald and guardian," Sansa spoke then, steady. "And who sits the council for the north?" Bran's gaze warmed. "You, sister, and a representative of Wintertown chosen by casting stones. The people will decide who walks with their queen." Sansa inclined her head, a queen beneath a king whose title was memory itself. Yet she felt something like pride for Bran, even as dread churned. He had not cast aside voices, he had gathered them. But his shield was a dragon's wing, and wings could cast very dark shadows. Weeks slid by in flurries of hammer and saw. Smiths reforged old swords into new plowshares and new spears alike. Bran's decree demanded readiness, not waste. Carpenters raised platforms for council gatherings. Scribes copied charters under flickering lamplight. Field kitchens fed armies of workers. Minstrels wove ballads predicting dawn of a second age. Across Westeros, lords read of Drogon's resurrection with dawning comprehension. Resistance had to be clever now, not loud. Some plotted alliances. Others plotted flights overseas. Merchants hoarded iron ore, guessing war's appetite. Quiet men with sharp eyes weighed secrets like coin. Whoever carried information about this new order could name his price in gold or mercy. In Old Town, archmaesters convened beneath starlight, filtered by smoky crystal candles. They argued omens. Some counseled caution. Others whispered of catastrophic magics ripping veils between life and death. In their conclave they spoke Bran's name with both reverence and alarm. The Broken King, the Dreamer of the North, the Corpse Prince astride a corpse dragon. Each title hinted at dread and wonder. Beyond the narrow sea, the warlocks of Qarth drank shade of the evening and saw visions of blue fire devouring red. They began weaving spells to tug at threads of fate, hoping to embroil the newborn realm in chaos enough to crack it from afar. In the east, Volantis watched shipping lanes shift and weighed sending an embassy. With gifts first, fleets later, empires understood the birth pangs of other empires. Opportunity and danger, inseparable twins. Deep winter receded, though grudgingly. Buds pushed through crusted snow. On the day roads cleared, Bran summoned the realm's convoy. Hundreds of riders, wagons, scouts, and smiths formed a procession. Periegs. Above them wheeled Drogon, wings stirring spring storms into swirling banners of cloud. People lining the king's road knelt as hoofbeats thundered past, dust mixing with petals from early blossoms. Some wept, seeing the dragon. Others crossed themselves, muttering prayers. Bran traveled at the convoy's heart. Chair mounted upon a custom wagon fitted with shock ropes that eased jostling. Sansa rode beside him on a tall gray-white fox cloak billowing. Drogon's passing shadow slid across their faces. Its chill made even seasoned knights flinch. 2 weeks into the march, they reached Moat Cailin, once ruined fortress now bristling with watchtowers rebuilt by Sansa's decree. The garrison bowed as Bran crossed the causeway, Drogon circling overhead. At night, campfires dotted the neck like embers on black velvet. Reeds rustled, and bog lights danced. Some said they saw faces beneath the water, Crannogmen's spirits welcoming change or warning of it. No one knew. Further south, ravens outpaced the convoy, carrying Bran's final charter to every seat of power. Storm's End. Sunspear, Highgarden, even Pike. The letter invited each lord to Harrenhal in a month's time to witness the signing of the Covenant of One Realm. Refusal implied rebellion. Obedience implied humility. At Pike, Lord Dalton Greyjoy read the charter twice, eyes narrowing. Kneel to a landlocked king and his undead dragon? The drowned god laughs. Yet his priest advisors cautioned. Dragonfire evaporated seawater. What might it do to wooden hulls? Choosing arrogance meant choosing ash. Greyjoy spat. Sealed barrels of black powder, and sent ravens scrawled with non-committal platitudes. In Dorne, Princess Arianne Wyn Martell traced the wolf and dragon seal, recalling scorched memories of her ancestors. She decided to send sand steeds north bearing wines and daggers both. Gifts and reminders that scorpion venom reached where swords could not. Highgarden's Lord Willis Tyrell hosted bards to debate whether a resurrected dragon defied natural order. Until they resolved it, he withheld open allegiance, but quietly gathered grain taxes to supply whichever side proved windward. At King's Landing, where no king had sat in years, a small council of guild leaders, septons, and scholars met in the gutted throne room. They debated inviting Bran's convoy to restore order, but feared losing their newfound autonomy. The leader of the Gold Cloaks, Sir Rennick Waters, observed silent. Disciplined troops looked to captains in storms, and a storm wheeled overhead with wings like night, made flesh. One night camped beside the Trident's upper fork. Bran dreamt he flew. Not skin-changing, nor memory. True flight. Drogon's heartbeat thundered beneath him. Each wing beat a tidal wave. The river glimmered silver below. Torches marked camps flanking its banks, freckles of mortal effort. Bran tasted air older than any kingdom. He laughed. An Aegon laugh, triumphant and free. But the wind shifted. Ahead unrolled a tapestry of ghosts. Fields charred black. Villages burning. Children screaming beneath collapsing walls. Drogon's breath painted cities in incandescent ruin, his rider's crown dripping flame. Bran tried to pull back, deny direction. But Aegon's hands gripped reins forged of will. All empire births in agony. The vision bled bright, then black, extinguishing life like a snuffed candle. Bran jolted awake, shivering though sweat-drenched tunic. In the next wagon, Sansa slept fitfully. He listened to her soft breaths, the distant clink of sentries, the gentle snore of horses. Peaceful sounds, fragile as spider silk. He closed eyes, pressing palms to ears, as if he could muffle prophecy. "Do not shy from destiny," Aegon murmured. "Pain is quill that writes eternity." Bran whispered, "Not eternity. Mercy." He stared at stars, cold, indifferent, infinite. "Guide me," he begged, to no one in particular. Perhaps the weirwoods heard. Perhaps even they stood silent before Dragonfear. At Harrenhal, the convoy split camp in the shadow of the melted towers. Crumbling walls loomed like colossal candles half-burned. Within their scorched embrace, wide courtyards hosted tents of myriad colors. Drogon roosted atop the tallest ruin, his ember eye pulsing like a lighthouse aflame. The day of Covenant dawned with bruised skies. Lords arrived by boat, by wagon, by wingless hope. Jon Snow rode in with a band of free folk shadows at dawn's first hue, slipping unannounced into camp. He strode straight to Bran's pavilion, Ghost pacing beside him. Bran awaited, a thick fur cloak across his legs. At Jon's entrance, Bran's face lit, brotherly warmth fracturing Aegon's serene mask. Jon knelt, hugging Bran fiercely. For a moment, time seemed to right itself. Two brothers reunited after endless roads diverged. Then Jon pulled back, studying Bran's eyes. He saw the distance there, the hidden furnace. "I hear you raise the realm," he said softly. "Someone must," Bran answered. Jon glanced skyward to where Drogon's silhouette eclipsed moon-pale sun. "Someone? Or something?" Bran's smile was wistful. "Both." Jon shook his head. "I've seen too many thrones turn to char to trust conquest." "This is not conquest," Bran insisted. "It is shield. Without a center, the realm tears itself." He hesitated. "Help me. Come inside. Temper Aegon's fire." Jon frowned. "You speak as though he is separate." "He is, and is not." Bran's voice cracked. "I hold the reins, but he bids the horse." Jon placed a hand on Bran's shoulder. "I'll stay. Not to crown you, but to guard the people from whatever rises." Ghost chuffed agreement. Relief brightened Bran's face. A dawn sliding over winter fields. Beneath it, Aegon purred. "The wolf guards while the dragon hunts." "Excellent." At noon, lords crowded the courtyard before Harrenhal's Heart Tower, where a dais had been erected of blackened oak. Bran wheeled to its center, flanked by Sansa on one side and Jon on the other. Representatives of commons, miners from the Westerlands, fishers from the Arbor, spice traders from Dorne, stood interspersed among great names. The sight unsettled traditionalists, inspired dreamers. Beneath a sky heavy with cloud, Bran began reading the Covenant of One Realm. Each clause rang across crumbling stone: equal levies, rotating councils, freedoms of faith and tongue, justice circuits, shared harbors. With each article, Murmurs rose then softened. Resistance melted before reason, though suspicion lingered like the smell of smoke in old walls. When the last clause lay spoken, Bran lifted a quill forged from Drogon's shed scale. "Kneel and sign," he declared, "and stand as founders of a dawn that will outshine our dusk." The first to step forward was Princess Arianwen Martell, whose desert silk cloak rippled like flame. She signed with fluid flourish, then knelt on sand-colored cushion. "Dorne stands," she said, "and kneels." Next came Lord Willis Tyrell, hobbling but proud. He signed, knelt. The Reach nourishes unity. One by one they followed. Tully, Arryn, Reed, Manderley. Even Dalton Greyjoy leant forward, jaw set, and signed, ink blotting like spilled oil. His kneel was stiff, but kneel he did. When the last signature dried, Drogon unfurled wings above, shadow blanketing all. A collective shiver rippled. Bran stood, miraculously, impossibly, from his chair. Gasps scattered. He stepped forward, feet trembling but firm, as if gravity itself obeyed his will now. "Rise," he commanded. They rose. Bran raised the covenant high. Wind snatched at its parchment yet could not tear. "By ice and by fire," he proclaimed, "let this stand." In that moment, a sliver of sunlight pierced cloud, catching parchment, catching Bran's face, igniting Drogon's single eye above. A column of warm radiance bathed them like benediction. And across the realm, bells tolled. Some rung by men forewarned, others by chance, some perhaps by unseen hands. Their peal braided with the echo of a roar that rolled from Harrenhal's towers. Dragon song and bell song together birthed a music not heard since conquest first carved the map. Night fell upon a realm altered. Campfires ringed Harrenhal like stars fallen to earth. In his pavilion Bran lay exhausted, but Aegon's vigor thrummed. Sansa and Jon kept vigil, silent but strong. Drogon curled beyond the tent, great body rising and falling like black sea swell. "Tomorrow," Bran whispered, voice ragged, "we send riders to King's Landing to prepare the council chamber in Maegor's Holdfast." Sansa nodded, adjusting his blanket. "It will take months to ready." "We have months," Bran said. "But word must travel tonight." Jon studied him. "And what of those who rebel in quiet chambers?" "Justice circuits begin in each region within the year," Bran said. "Their authority will unmask treachery." His eyes flickered. "And Drogon's shadow will remind them why masks fail." Thunder rumbled without clouds, a sound now familiar. Drogon dreaming. Jon sighed. "Just remember mercy, brother." Bran's gaze softened. "Mercy is the root of unity, Jon. Fear is only its bark." Jon hoped the bark would not strangle the root. He squeezed Bran's shoulder. "Rest. Dot. Tomorrow dawns long. Men are winter." When Bran slept, his dreams held not fire but fields, rippling green under wide summer skies. Children chased kites shaped like direwolves and dragons, laughing in unison. In the dream he felt whole. No wheelchair. No fracture in mind. Aegon watched, and for once made no comment. But outside the pavilion, a messenger slipped into shadows. Charter hidden beneath cloak. He rode before moonrise, bound for Korth with news of Dragon's resurrection, and a realm forging afresh. For every kneeling knee, a coin tosses tails. Somewhere across the world another will sharpened, hearing in this new unity an opportunity to fracture. And so while Bran slept beneath lumpen canvas smelling of campfire and lilac oil, while Drogon's breath warmed the night like a slow bellows, while Sansa hummed an old lullaby and Jon sharpened long claw until its edge caught starlight, somewhere in darkness wheels turned, coins passed, poisons mixed. For every dawn, a shadow. Yet dawn, it remained. Far to the south, on the scarred battlements of the Red Keep, an old sellsword watched the horizon. Rumor had flown faster than ravens. A dragon soared north, carrying with it death or deliverance. The sellsword spat into the wind. Another king, another conquest. Beside him, a lantern-jawed commander of the gold cloaks surveyed flickering city lights. "If the dragon comes," he murmured, "which way will the wind blow?" The sellsword hefted his spear. "Toward whomever bends first, or away from those who break." Below them, King's Landing slept uneasy. Dreamers turning beneath patchwork blankets, hearing in distant hush the whisper of wings. Tomorrow, or next week, or next moon, Bran the Broken and Aegon the Conqueror would cross those gates. Two kings sharing one crown, one victory, one burden. What crown would the city behold? What burden would the realm bear? The sellsword shivered, though the night was warm. He thought of fires that melted Harrenhal, of wildfire that devoured Hightower spires. He thought of bells that rang for mad queens. Then he drew his cloak tighter, staring north where stars dimmed beyond a horizon not yet aflame. In the still hours, Bran awoke. The pavilion was dark, save a single dying candle. Aegon's voice hovered like embers on breath. "Dawn, little king. Dawn becomes day," Bran whispered back, "and day must yield to night. Night yields to flame. Flame yields to ash." Silence, then a soft reply. "Then we shall rise from ash, as dragons do." Bran closed heavy lids. Tomorrow he would ride south beneath banners that merged wolf and dragon. Flanked by lords who once mistrusted each other, guarded by a beast resurrected from death. He would speak in council chambers scarred by centuries of ambition, wield a covenant inked in bold hope and subtle threat. And in every word he offered the realm. Mercy or flame, Aegon would stride beside him, unseen but undeniable. Yet Bran clung to one truth. Vision showed only paths, not destinations. Will shaped the rest. His will. Their will. All Neils were choices. Perhaps even Aegon, greatest of conquerors, might one day kneel in memory's crypt, bowing not to fear or dominion, but to the fragile grace of mercy. Perhaps. He allowed that ember of possibility to glow, small yet steadfast, within chest and dragon alike. Outside, Drogon lifted his head to the stars, exhaled a plume of smoke that spiraled like silver thread into the heavens. Stars shimmered through it, then shone clearer than before, as if cleaned by dragon breath. Bran watched the smoke fade, hope flickering with it. Dawn's first hint cooled the eastern sky. Tomorrow, the wheel would turn, and the world would feel its spokes bite. But for the breadth of one heartbeat, all stood still. A dragon's quiet exhalation, a king's tentative hope, a realm poised between ruin and rebirth. The snow had long melted from Winterfell's stones. Yet in Bran's heart he carried a single flake, pure and fragile, that no flame could touch. Around it swirled storms of fire, but at its center remained the unbroken silence of falling snow. And in its hush a promise whispered, "Kneel if you must, but stand afterward. Stand taller, stand taller, stand unburned." Whether that promise could withstand a conqueror's roar, only time. And the hearts of those who now marched beneath mingled banners would tell. Night wore thin over Harrenhal, and though sentries kept watch upon every tower, something older than steel drifted through the ruins. A violet mist too faint for torches to reveal. It slithered along shattered stones, seeping through mortar cracks and whispering beneath pavilion flaps. Camphounds, bred to fear nothing but steel and stranger, whimpered and pressed bellies to earth as the vapor drifted by. Where it touched, warmth fled. Dew purled into hoarfrost. The mist gathered at the foot of the dais where Bran slept, and in its rippling heart glimmered twin sparks of unreal blue. The eyes of a Corthine shade summoned across half a world. Bran's dream unraveled. Green fields guttered to black, children's laughter torn to silence. He woke not to canvas and candle, but to moonless void so dense it felt molten. In that void floated the shade, its robes made of shifting dusk, its breath smelling of cloves steeped in the dead. Breaker of cycles, the apparition hissed without lips. History rebukes hubris. Return what you stole. Aegon surged forward inside Bran's marrow. Suddenly Bran's ears rang with battle horns. "Begone," he said. But the word carried two voices, boyish and thunderous. Drogon stirred outside, crimson eye flaring behind folds of wing. The shade drifted nearer, frost dusting Bran's blankets. Somewhere beyond the pavilion, ghost steel scraped free of scabbard. Jon Snow answering a call he could not yet hear. Shadow cannot supplant flame. Aegon growled through Bran's teeth. He raised a trembling hand. Veins beneath skin gleamed ember orange, as though magma flowed in place of blood. The shade recoiled, robes shredding into sparks. Bran thrust his palm outward, and a lance of heat invisible to mortal sight arced forth. Canvas exploded into white fire. The pavilion shattered upward like a lantern burst by its own candle. Jon and Ghost lunged inside the bloom of flame, snow-damp cloaks whipping smoke. They saw Bran levitating a hand crowned by swirling embers. They saw the shade wail as its substance unraveled into glowing motes that vanished on a wind no one felt. Then everything settled. Ashes drifted. Bran sagged, and Drogon's answering roar rolled across camp, snapping tent ropes, flattening banners. In the aftermath, Jon cradled Bran against smoldering earth. The younger Stark weighed nothing, skin ice-cold despite lingering heat. Jon looked up to see Sansa stumbling barefoot, nightgown singed, eyes huge. The warlocks, Jon breathed. They crossed half the world. Sansa knelt, drawing Bran's head onto her lap. "Are you hurt?" "No," Bran whispered, voice thinned by exhaustion. "But he is stronger." His eyes slid shut, tears slipped down cheeks gone ashen. "And so am I." Aegon's voice flickered within. "Shadow dies where dawn stands. We march at sunrise. Fear will not pause to mourn." By morning, charred canvas lay folded like shed skin beyond the Heart Tower. Bran convened a war council in what remained of Maegor's old feasting hall. Tyrion Lannister arrived at its threshold, cloaked in travel dirt yet sharp-eyed. Behind him stood the Dragon Queen herself, Daenerys Stormborn, silver hair bound in braids touched with white. Her gaze riveted first to Bran, then to Drogon. Alive yet not, perched atop the tower like some black god awakened too soon. For a moment everything froze. Queen staring at dragon she had loved. Dragon staring back with ember and milk. Bran felt Daenerys' grief crash against his chest, raw enough to cut. Aegon studied her through Bran's eyes, weighing history and utility. "Your Grace," Bran began, "you see what has been restored. I see what has been defiled." She answered, voice brittle. "My child died on my watch. Now he rises bound to another." "Bound to the realm," Bran corrected. "By his breath we enforce peace." Daenerys advanced until heat from dragonfire-forged scales warmed her cheeks. "Peace commanded by stolen flame is tyranny in finer clothes." "Flame cannot be stolen," Aegon replied, tones silk over steel. "It only passes between hands strong enough to hold it." Jon stepped between them. "Words won't mend this. We need each other. Warlocks sail behind their shade. Essos smells opportunity." Tyrion cleared his throat. "Large opportunities, from what spies whisper. Qarth has hired the Golden Company's heirs, and a sorrowful men splinter sect. They ride under black sails stitched with a burning eye. Then Daenerys' shoulders twitched. Half shiver, half readiness. Then break them before they land. Dragonstone still commands the straits." Bran shook his head. "We turn south, not east. If King's Landing bows, the rest follows. Qarth's blades dull when mainland unity sharpens." Sansa spoke. "But pirates could cut supply lines, starve us in siege. We must answer both fronts." A strategy was born in that cold hall. Daenerys would sail ahead with Dragonstone's fleet, plus contingents from the Reach and Vale, pinching the narrow sea. Sansa would escort Bran's overland convoy, but station Jon and free folk scouts along coasts to signal any breach. Tyrion schemed supply routes through Riverland's granaries. Princess Martell pledged Dornish sandskiffs to strike at Stepstone's hideouts. The realm's newborn council flexed sinew, each voice weaving into a single war loom. Yet beneath every plan moved the silent tension between Queen and conquered dragon, between brother and brother king, between Fire's promise and Winter's memory. None could say which would prove sharper. The march resumed, leaving Harrenhal's haunted chimneys smoking like spent altars. South of Pink Maiden, the King's Road swelled into a living artery. Carts creaked beneath bolts of wool. Outriders wheeled banners catching first blush of spring. Peasants knelt as Drogon's shadow scythed over barley shoots. Blessing or blighting depending on whom one asked. At every village Bran delivered grain charters and low-tax accords signed under Wolf-Dragon's seal. Hope sprouted faster than fear, though both grew. One dusk they came upon a charred sept outside Stony Ford. Smoke still rose. Sparrows knelt by the ruins singing hymns that cracked with soot in their throats. Bran halted the convoy. He listened to their hymn, a plea for mercy on children lost inside. He listened to the wind curling through blackened arches. And behind both he heard Aegon's simmering rage. Terror breeds defiance. Defiance breeds terror. Find who did this, Bran ordered. Scouts discovered hoofprints of sellswords flying no banner, likely hired from the disputed lands to harry roads. Sow panic. Jon tracked them to a dell 3 leagues south. 24 men drinking from tarnished goblets. Spoils of burnt offerings. He returned, face grim. Hang them, Aegon said through Bran's mouth when Jon finished report. Jon's jaw tightened. Give them trial at least. Bran's eyes flashed ember. The trial is their charred work. Sentences swift. They rode out at dawn. Drogon landed behind the dell's oak line. Ground trembling. Sellsword scattered. Dragonfire caught them before they took 10 steps. Those not burned were bound. Jon watched Bran pronounce death, voice calm as a maester cataloging herbs. As ropes tightened about necks, Bran looked away, but Aegon stared until feet stilled. The lesson held. Villages whispered that crimes would burn under the broken king's gaze. Sansa confronted Bran that night by torchlight. Fear is a brittle shield. Crack it too often, and it shatters. Bran's sigh steamed in the chill. I know. But Aegon, he fears lenience invites wolves. We are wolves, she reminded. He almost smiled. Then perhaps we must teach him pack law. Far out upon the sunset sea, warlock galleys slashed water. Purple sails swollen. They carried black iron cages, each housing a queer artifact. Molten obsidian eggs swirling with trapped souls, silver mirrors filled with captured moonlight, and at the flagship's bow, a great horn carved from kraken's spine. Bound in Valyrian steel bands etched with glyphs the warlocks claimed predated old Valyria itself. Atop the forecastle, Pyat Pre's disciples chanted, their tongues stained blue with shade of the evening. They sang of sundered chains and thrones reforged in shadow. They did not fear dragons. They had come to enslave one, then all. Yet storms dogged their fleet, unnatural storms that rose in minutes, raging against charts and season. One by one, lesser vessels foundered. Lightning forked in patterns like 3-headed sigils scorched across sky. The warlocks pressed on, but ships reeked of fear by the time Blackwater Bay came into sight. King's Landing glimpsed the convoy first as a rumor. Wolves marching with a resurrected dragon. A dead boy walking. A broken king healed. Guild halls buzzed. Brothels hummed with contradictory tales. Bran soared upon Drogon's back. Bran drank the souls of children. Bran wore armor of frozen tears. When at last the vanguard rode into Cobbler's Square under banners of direwolf and tripled dragon, crowds parted without sermon or lash. They knelt out of reflex older than memory. Dragons commanded joints as gravity commands stone. Bran's wagon entered the city, flanked by Sansa, Jon, and 80 northern spears. Tyrion rode ahead on a shaggy courser, posture erect, projecting cheer while eyes counted vantage points for assassins. Bells rang slow and deep. A welcome unsanctioned yet unstoppable. People wept, laughed, cheered. Some pressed tokens to Jon's hands. A king they never crowned but still revered. Jon tucked each trinket away like shards of duty. At the Red Keep Bran dismounted, again standing under his own power, though every step quivered. Gold cloaks lined the yard. Their commanders saluted, helm pressed to heart. Maegor's holdfast stands ready, your graces. They ascended stairs chipped by ages of kings. Where once jagged swords twisted into the Iron Throne, now yawned an empty dais. Rubble from Daenerys's melting had been swept away, but scorch marks lingered, ghosts of ambitions untempered. Bran paused, fingertips brushing stone gone glassy. He heard echoes. Aegon's first decree, Maegor's last scream, Mad King's laughter. He inhaled. "Bring the Covenant here," he told Wolkan. "And 4 chairs for each region's voices." Sansa eyed the dais. "And the throne?" Bran studied vacant platform. "A chair of weirwood and black steel will suffice, heavy enough to remind, but not to wound." A flicker of Aegon's amusement tugged his mouth. "Kings sit where they choose. Stones remember why." Daenerys sailed into Blackwater at sunrise, dragonstone banners snapping above masts. Small folk watched her disembark clad in scarlet, scaled cloak. Many fell to knees again, unsure which monarch commanded their loyalty. Drogon banked overhead, alive but not hers, and the sight cut a fresh wound through her chest. Still, she climbed the hill, head high, and entered Maegor's holdfast, where the new council awaited. She passed a tapestry depicting Nymeria's landing, noting wolf threads newly sewn among lion and stag. Symbolic gestures sprouted like weeds in Bran's Garden of Unity. Inside the throne hall, Bran greeted her with formal nod. "Queen Daenerys of Dragonstone, the council recognizes your seat and sword." She halted at edge of dais, eyes flicking to where Iron Throne once loomed. "I come not to seek crowns, nor to yield," Bran asked, voice gentle. "I yield to the realm," she replied, "but I will not serve as ornament." "Then serve as compass," Bran offered. He gestured to an empty chair carved of pale driftwood, sea wrack motifs curling its arms. "Guide us upon waters you have sailed." Daenerys' jaw softened. She sat. Thus the Council of 9, 2 voices per region plus arbiter, held its first true session beneath cracked vaults echoing with every sin of kings before them. Their agenda opened with grain. Tyrion described yields down nearly a third from unseasonal frosts, and long nights lingering blight. Dornish spokesperson Naera Sand proposed heat lattice greenhouses, powered by volcanic vents, along Westerosi fault lines, citing lessons from old Volantis's cliff farms. Lords balked at cost, until Bran offered draft dragonglass bonds. Currency minted from obsidian shards once worthless, save as curios. Warlocks hungered for such relics. Their purchase abroad would finance domestic infrastructure. Daenerys nodded, impressed. Next they debated faith. Septons demanded precedence. Ironborn priests demanded salt sacrifices. Orlor-wed priests desired flame temples in every harbor. Bran listened, then laid down articles of mutual tolerance. For each shrine built to one god, a shrine of equal stone must rise to another. Violence between faiths would be tried in secular court, with clergy seats on judging panels. Objections shrank under Drogon's shadow looming through broken skylight. That days spilled into weeks. Streets flooded with plaster dust and saw shavings as workshops forged the new realm. Gold cloaks drilled alongside northern spears. Free folk traded furs for silk. Dornish engineers mapped hot spring viaducts under slums. Hope kindled, fragile but catching. But beyond the bay, a storm massed. Warlock fleet slipping past stepstones under cover of illusions cast by moonglass mirrors. They anchored at night, near Crackclaw Point, disembarking shadow-clad warriors and mire-born assassins. Their vanguard captured a lighthouse, snuffed its flame, replaced beacon with purple lantern, guiding more ships through shoals. By dawn they would strike, steal Drogon with Kraken horn, shatter Bran's power at its heart. Jon's scouts spotted them late, racing across dunes to warn the city. Tyrion sounded bells. Archers hurried to walls. Daenerys seized armor older than her exile. Bran ascended ramparts near Dragon Pit ruins, white cloak whipping. Drogon rose from courtyard, stretching newly knit wings. Warlocks advanced, chanting in tongues that bruised the ear. They blew the Kraken horn, 3 notes like whales dying. Drogon faltered mid-wing beat, head snapping toward the alien call. Bran felt unseen hooks bite Dragon's mind. Aegon stiffened. rage incandescent. No chain fits a true dragon. Bran's eyes glazed ember. He pushed thought through the bond. Pain flared, like driving iron spikes into skullbone. Yet Drogon's wings steadied, though tremor rippled membrane. Warlock galleys loosed catapults hurling glass orbs that burst into swirling violet clouds. Where the clouds touched stone, masonry crumbled to ash. One orb struck the rampart near Bran. Jon yanked him back as parapet vanished in whisper of dust. Daenerys charged across battlements, wielding an arc of dragonglass. Gift from Summer Isles. Blue tongues licked along its blade as warlock shade conjurations lunged. She cut them like cobwebs. Each slice spilled sparks that hissed, leaving air smelling of burnt cloves. On the sea, Tyrion commandeered harbor scorpions, firing bolts tipped with wildfire-infused pitch. Galleys erupted, purple sails burning green. Yet the flagship advanced, horn blaring again. Drogon shrieked, veering. Bran reached deeper, past Aegon's fury, beyond his own, into the first men's forgotten part of him, where trees whispered across ages. He drew upon the living strength of every weirwood from Frostfangs to Storm's End. Roots like veins, leaves like nerves, memory flowing as sap. Through that network, he wove words older than Valyrian, older than men. Exio pregio morgultas. The king's shadow dies. His body jerked. White from his eyes vanished. Jon staggered from surge, feeling hairs stand on end. At sea, the horn blower gasped. Its Valyrian bands glowed red, then white. Cracks spidered. Molten metal spat onto deck. The horn shrieked a final dissonant squeal and exploded, shredding foredeck, hurling warlocks over rails. Drogon screamed triumph and dived. Purple smoke curled into monstrous forms. Serpents, lions, krakens. At city walls, Daenerys met a smoke serpent on tower top. Her Eric cleaved illusion, revealing starved sellsword crouched beneath glamour. She dispatched him, heart hardened by memory of Meereen's chaos. Drogon's first blast of fire turned flagship to molten skeleton. Second blast carved a corridor of steam across bay, capsizing skiffs. Warlocks tried spells of water and wind, but Bran countered with will of root and bone. Trees on city hills groaned. Newly sprouted leaves bled red sap. Wind shifted, scattering purple clouds back over a salt fleet. Enchanted poison turned on its casters. Men coughed violet blood. By dawn, Blackwater glittered with burning debris. Surviving warlocks fled south, illusions shattered, leaving sails raw and ragged. City cheered, bells rang with unforced joy. Yet Bran collapsed upon broken rampart, pulse flickering. Jon caught him. Aegon's voice whispered, oddly faint. Even kings bleed deep. He awoke 2 days later in Maester's tower. Sansa sat bedside, reading scrolls. Tears crept when his eyes opened. She mastered them. We held, she said. But trees across realm grow sick. Whatever power you wielded drained them. Maester's worry for spring. Bah. Bran studied his trembling hands. Price was lighter than chains. Yet prices compound. Jon entered, face drawn. Daenerys holds council. They speak of forming a dragon corps. Build scorpions for allies. Teach princes to ride. A weapon races another weapon, Bran murmured. Then answer them, Jon urged. Show them pieces sharper edge. Bran closed eyes. He heard weirwood groans far north. Felt sap, sluggish. Aegon stirred, weary yet resolute. Peace sharpened by vigilance. Forge both, or perish. Weeks passed. King's Landing rebuilt lighthouses with mirrored plates redirecting sunrise, symbol of new dawn visible leagues offshore. Tyrell engineers planted roof gardens on tenements, using Dornish arid soil tech, feeding thousands. Gold cloaks patrolled with freefolk rangers, diffusing riots before they sparked. In Riverlands, Lord Tully's canal workers uncovered an obsidian obelisk, etched with runes matching Bran's dream tongue. When touched, it pulsed faint heat, and seeds half buried nearby sprouted overnight, even in poor soil. Bran ordered it convoyed to Citadel for study. Maesters nearly feuded with priests over its custody. Eventually, council decreed public displays under guard, arguing knowledge belongs to realm. But not all prospered. Iron Islands festered. Dalton Greyjoy's vassals muttered that kneeling at Harrenhal under fear of dragonfire was not binding upon Salt Throne's true sons. Black-sailed longships raided Arbor outposts, taking hostages. Princess Martell's skiffs hunted them, but currents favored reavers. Council debated sending Drogon. Bran refused. Fire could not solve every wound. Aegon disagreed, yet ceded when Bran reminded memory of old Harren's folly. Instead, Jon proposed embassies bearing ironwood might and fair trade. Some reavers accepted, swayed by coin and status. Zealots did not. In Wintertown, children fashioned toy dragons of wood and wool. Others carved direwolves. They staged mock councils in dirty streets, shouting charters. Culture shifted, fear tempered by fascination, obedience blended with participation. Yet old lords fretted. Children who forget to fear dragons may grow careless of kings. Daenerys visited Drogon nightly, speaking in soft Valyrian. Sometimes Bran joined. She would stroke molten scales, tears glistening. Drogon accepted her touch, but eyes always sought Bran, chain unseen yet unbroken. One night she asked, "Will you ever release him?" "When realm stands on legs strong enough," Bran answered. "Dragons are crutches until then. And if they learn to fly while leaning?" She asked. "Then we teach them landing," he replied, uncertain if answer belonged to Bran, Aegon, or both. She smiled sadly. "My children were born in crucible of war. You birth yours in crucible of unity. May they fare better." Bedin. Years seemed to compress into months. The Covenant Council expanded. Guild seats, healer guilds, river fisher collectives. Decisions turned slow, but resilient. Drogon grew stronger. His milky eye healed to dim copper. Bran's legs remained brittle, yet standing spells lengthened. Some said dragonfire knitted nerves. Others whispered old gods molded new marrow. Bran cared little. Each step reminded him of price and promise. A delegation from Korth arrived, heads shaved, silks dripping apology. They offered chests of jade and a treaty pledging 10% of spice trade tariffs. Bran accepted goods but bound warlocks to magical non-aggression oaths carved on obsidian tablets. Violation would ignite runes, burning signers within. Maesters balked at such sorcery. Bran nodded. So ensure treaties never need fire. Yet beneath new order smoldered ancient hunger. Aegon watched councils, markets, always asking, "Is it enough? Are they safe?" Kneelings fade. Bran countered with trust in slow roots, not quick flames. Some nights they warred within, minds split by thunder. But each dawn he walked ramparts greeting laborers who hailed him, not with fear but with bread and jokes. Aegon's doubts eased, fraction by fraction. One spring eve, Bran dreamt of hearts. Crimson leaves fluttered into city streets, coating cobbles. Small folk stooped to gather them, pressing into books, tucking into hair. Each leaf whispered a memory, and memory bound stranger to stranger. He woke smiling. Aegon stirred, bemused. Maybe leaf outlives flame. That season, council ratified the memory accord. Every household granted right to plant a single weirwood sapling or equivalent sacred tree. Citadel distributed seedlings grafted from north groves. Southron septons protested pagan incursion. But compromise allowed statues of 7 beside each sapling. Streets blossomed scarlet each autumn. Children danced in leaf rain, wearing dragon-scale masks from harvest fairs. People began calling themselves the Knit Kingdoms, threads once frayed now weaving tapestry. Not all threads gleamed. In the far reach, a plague of weevils ruined orchards. Septon zealots blamed northern sorcery, burning saplings. Bran dispatched healers and northern agronomists. They showed beetles devoured weevils, saplings attracted beetles. Orchards rebounded. Zealots' sermons lost luster. Practical proof smothered superstition. Aegon observed. Sword drawn passes once. Seed planted passes forever. Bran replied, both still need tending. 10 years after Bran entered King's Landing, spring sunrise flooded Maegor's Holdfast where a new hall stood. High windows shaped like interlocking direwolves and dragons. Floor mosaics of rivers feeding same sea. At hall's center sat the seat of balance, carved from weirwood roots entwined with melted iron throne blades. Steel smoothed, edges blunted, wood polished. Bran rested there not as tyrant, but as memory incarnate. He still walked only hours each day, but those hours set rhythms empire-wide. Children born after Drogon's resurrection knew no other world. They learned in schoolhouses funded by obsidian bonds, taught to read runes beside letters, to debate charters beside histories. They played with toy ships bearing flags of many houses on same mast. They argued whether direwolf or dragon ran faster. Wagers ended in laughter, not blood. Jon led Ranger Corps along shattered coastlines, rebuilding watchtowers into lighthouse schools. Sansa governed northern provinces with council of forge masters and snow harvest lords. Tyrion curated archives thicker than Blackwater mud. Daenerys oversaw fleet of climate ships, mapping currents for farmers. No longer breaker of chains, but keeper of waves. Yet Bran sensed cycle's patience. Storms would come, horns would blow again. So he prepared not battlements only, but hearts. Each festival he walked among crowd, unguarded save Drogon's distant glide. He spoke of mistakes, his own and others. He taught that unity thrived on dissent tempered by empathy. He repeated until tongues remembered, kneel only to shared future, never to fear. Late one night Bran wheeled into courtyard where Drogon slept coiled. Moonlight silvered scales. Scar where Shadehorn scarred wing glistened like quartz. Bran laid palm on warm hide. Aegon's voice whispered, soft as falling ash. The realm stands. It grows, Bran corrected. Then release him. Bran's heart stuttered. He might leave. Then, chains never mattered. Flames burn brighter unfettered. Bran closed eyes. With trembling breath he reached a long bond and opened it. A thread parted like silk. For a heartbeat silence yawned. Drogon's eyes snapped open. He stared at Bran with question older than houses. Bran bowed head. Go, if you will. Drogon rose, wings unfurling star-wide. He lifted on column of air, circling once. Small folk sleeping heard whoosh like mountain shift. They woke to glimpse shadow-crossing moon. At horizon Drogon paused, tail flicking. A roar rolled back, neither oath nor threat, but acknowledgement. Then he disappeared into night, ember eye fading like dying coal. Bran watched until dawn stained sky. Tears wet his cheeks, but they were not of loss. Behind them Aegon's presence settled, content. No king forever, he murmured. No chain forever, Bran answered. He turned chair toward waking city. Bells began to ring. Not an alarm, but custom now. Dragon's departure, they would call it. A holiday of freedom. Children would chase paper dragons across streets. Priests of many gods would bless new seeds. Sailors would name ships after wings they never saw. Life would proceed, imperfect, striving. Bran wheeled on, weight of Aegon within grown light as dawn breeze. In release they found completion. A king who was memory and conqueror both. Guiding a realm that knelt once but rose again. Taller, kinder, unburned. And somewhere beyond sunrise a black speck soared, wheeling above waves, free as story.